Jeanne Monahan, president of the March for Life, is on the Doodmaker Hotline with us. March for Life, of course, will take place on Thursday. Hello, Jeanne. How are you, my dear?
Good morning, Mike. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am disquieted.
Yeah, that was an excellent introduction. I mean, this has just been fun to listen for the last 10 minutes. I'd love to talk to you another time about the whole death after cardiac arrest, the brain dead thing. It's pro-life.
No. Jeanne, I printed it out. I have the paper written in the New England Journal of Medicine 2007 on the death after cardiac arrest. I didn't even mention that one to the audience.
Well, I mean, that and the brain dead thing, they're almost the exact same thing. So another time, another conversation.
Yes.
That's a really important pro-life issue.
Well, and the other issues of life that you can't, I said they're all stitched together. Not just stitched together, they're woven together. They're inseparable. They're part of the same fabric. And Ovid Monahan, who was from the Americans United for Life, was on the show last hour. And he and I talked briefly about some of these other issues that surround abortion, such as some people have, or not some people, many people have this idea that, well, we shouldn't bring unwanted children into the world, and in that case, then abortion is permissible. Well, so in this we shouldn't bring unwanted children into the world idea. Well, this, I think, Jeanne, has at its core a very disturbing precursor, which is, okay, well, why were you engaging in the activity that resulted then in what you say is the unwanted child? This is because both from a Catholic perspective, from an ecumenical perspective, from a denominational perspective, even from an agnostic perspective, Americans, this generation of children that are among us that are going to have the next generation of abortions, which you were trying to prevent with the March for Life, have not been instructed in morality, have they? Our catechism has stunk, hasn't it?
Well, I definitely hear what you're saying, that there are so many different issues sort of interwoven into this, but here's where I love our theme for the March for Life this year, which is just counter to what you were just talking about, that idea of the unwanted child, which is just absolutely erroneous. There is no such thing as an unwanted child, because our theme this year is the truth of the matter, which is that every life is a gift. Every life is a gift. And that, regardless of how they were conceived, even if it wasn't under the most perfect of circumstances like what you're describing there, that person is unique, unrepeatable, important in God's plan. They have a special mission in this world, and that's what we're really trying to educate folks about this year at the March for Life.
Well, I think that's important, and I also think that if someone says to me, well, unwanted children, I don't think we should bring unwanted children into the world, or I'm for abortion in that one instance, I would respond, unwanted by whom? God?
Right. Great point.
Because there are no accidents when like a priest that I listen to often says, God's in charge, he knows what he's doing, he's been here before, he knows the future, and if that child was conceived, well, then he either allowed it to happen or he made it happen, one of the two. Either way, that's his choice, not yours. Your choice, your job now is to fulfill the rest of the promise, which is to bring that child into this world. If it has to be adopted, well, then that's what has to happen. But that's what has to happen after that. Once the conception has occurred, well, then, as he says, God's in charge. He knows what he's doing. Obey him. Do not say no. Where's that message at?
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. Now, one of the groups that we're seeing is just absolutely targeted for abortion. I mean, any abortion is one too many, but this theme that we're doing this year of every life is a gift, its underpinning is especially little ones who are quote-unquote less desired or less wanted, going from what you were just saying, which is those who might have Down syndrome or another serious disability. And there's this weird irony, Mike, that right now what's happening in our culture is that with the Americans with Disability Act, it's the 25th anniversary of it this year, and there are, more protections for people who have disability in the United States than ever before in our world, and yet for a little one who is conceived but then receives a poor prenatal diagnosis, do you know that 9 out of 10 of those little ones are aborted? 9 out of 10 of them are aborted. That we are basically eradicating an entire population of people in the United States. So any abortion is one too many, but there are certain populations that are highly disproportionately targeted, and this prenatal diagnosis population is highly targeted for abortion.
And this is again, this is the result of those decades and decades of scientific research that has allowed science to discover these abnormalities before the fact, which is something that is of modern invention. You wouldn't have been able to do this back 50 years ago or so. You wouldn't have. You know, the first amniotic fluid tests were what, 1960s, 1970s?
Yeah, into the 70s. That sounds right.
Right, and I'm not even sure what they revealed at that time. Certain gene markers or certain blood types or whatever that would tell you that you may be carrying a Down's child. But this, again, none of this matters if there is no Margaret Sanger. There is no eugenicist movement, because the idea here is that man ought to be making decisions on who ought to live and who ought to die, instead of God. So, again, and I know people that have written me letters. Believe me, I have received letters. I have received letters from people who have implored me to stop using certain words because they were parents of Down's children. They even sent me family pictures of the child, and I did. I stopped using the word. I don't use it anymore. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I don't use the word any longer. But my point is that those people love those children. Those children are loved, regardless of what their condition is. Just like if your child takes sick, you know, your natural, your maternal, especially your maternal reaction is to do what? Is to rush to their defense. Is to provide some motherly love and comfort. Not to go grab a needle and suck the brain out of the back of their head.
Right. I heard this young man this weekend who was a Special Olympian. He had Down syndrome, and he was phenomenal. I was at a little conference, and he basically stole the show. I mean, in terms of all of the speakers, he was absolutely phenomenal. And he had this quote that really touched me, which is that we're much more alike than we are different. You know, we sort of think that we're better, so to speak. Those of us who are quote-unquote perfect, and of course none of us are perfect in this culture, but we can really prejudice, and to hear, you know, from the mouths of the babes, you know, that we're much more alike than different. And then he said something like, it's always okay to just be yourself, you know. And seriously, this guy earned the right to say it. It was really beautiful to hear it, and it really spoke to my heart. So there's so much there.
Jeanne, how many people do you think will give me some stats from prior years? Jeanne Monahan from the March for Life is on the Dude Maker hotline with us. Give me some stats from prior years and what the estimates are. And I realize you probably have to rely on park police to get the estimates, but from your take and from where you stand with the March for Life, how many people have attended and how many do you expect this year?
So we estimate, because the Park Service doesn't actually do estimates anymore after like a political kind of thing that happened after the Million Man March. They no longer do estimates. But we estimate that there are hundreds of thousands of participants in the March for Life. And what I can tell you, and I know you've been there, is that what happens is that these crowds are so packed. I mean, basically, it's almost suffocating how many people are there, especially right at the end when you're passing the Supreme Court. It's so dense, and it's like they're shoulder to shoulder. And for that crowd, from the first person to the last person passing, takes almost 2 hours for people to keep moving. So that's the marker, and we continue to kind of get different markers and look to get crowd counts, what have you. So I think in years to come we'll be able to get a little more specific, but we estimate hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah, I mean, it's mind-boggling, especially there's a point where you're walking up Constitution Avenue and you get close to the Capitol and turn around. Right. And as far as you can see, folks have seen this picture on the internet, as far as you can see, it's just seas of people, and particularly young people, and positive people. You know, people who know that this is the human rights abuse of today, and they have so much hope that they're going to bring it to an end. And they give us hope. I mean, they really do.
And you're seeing the result of live births. That's a sea of live births. Another way to look at it.
That's right. We are, that's a great point, Mike, because we're missing like 1/5 of the population that should be there with us. I mean, that's right.
Now let me say something else to warm the bottom places of your most tender heart, my dear, and that is, I can personally tell you, I can tell you from eyewitness account that Father Ian Bozant and 5 buses, 3 buses left Mary Queen of Peace Parish in Mandeville, Louisiana, to go to New Orleans to go meet up with the rest of the diocese, where there would be a total of 17 buses. And Father Bozant was giving us the count of the children that were going and how many kids were going from this school. I can tell you that there's 17 buses total are on their way to you. Sunday from Calcasieu Parish in western Louisiana, 7 buses boarded, chock filled. And I can tell you, my niece, who's 14 years old, who may have a vocation in Holy Mother Church someday, I think. But my niece and many of her classmates from the little Catholic school that she goes to was among those with one of her aunties and teachers. They loaded up 7 buses, which are on the way to you. So the children are definitely the youthful part of the pro-life movement to me, is the most beautiful, tear-jerking, wonderful thing that I think that I have seen. And the kids, they get it. They understand. It's like I tell people, Mike, can you explain the gold standard? I said, I explained it to my 11-year-olds, and they got it, wanted to know why they didn't have it, how come they were going to have to repay my debts. Well, yes, children get things. We don't give them credit for getting them, but they understand.
I agree. They see when something's honest and truthful, and it evokes freedom and goodness. I totally agree. One of our speakers at the March for Life this year, and we have very, very few speakers anymore, extremely, careful and decide, weeks and months in advance, what have you. One of our speakers is a young person coming on a bus from North Dakota with 9 other buses from her school to tell the story of getting these groups together, because what you just described is the heart of what the March for Life is about. I mean, and it is what warms your heart. It's those young people and how far they travel. I mean, these are really pilgrimages of sorts coming to the March for Life. And it's just beautiful. I mean, it's just pretty mind-boggling. There's nothing else that I'm aware of in our world that's just like this. I mean, people know that this is the issue of today, and they're willing to make tremendous sacrifices to make a difference for this. So we're so grateful, for all those buses that come and all those young people. And I'm just so excited to see them. I mean, we're starting to really catch the enthusiasm around here.
Now, let me ask you another question. Jeanne Monahan, who is the president for the March for Life, which again takes place Thursday in, as I call it, Jeanne, Mordor on the Potomac River. But maybe for one day, the orcs will be pushed aside in favor of the hobbits. So the hobbits descend on Mordor. Let me ask you, I have never had the blessing of meeting someone that has survived the ghastly procedure of abortion. Have you? And is there anyone that will be speaking at March for Life that is a survivor?
Well, so we're all survivors, so to speak, certainly of Roe versus Wade. We do not have a specific person who has survived abortion speaking, but after the show, I can tell you 2 or 3 people that are phenomenal speakers that can do that, and we should, in future years, have something like that. It's a wonderful idea.
Okay, and you begin at what, 6 a.m. Thursday morning?
So our first official kickoff activity is tomorrow. We have a conference and expo, and it's free, although you do have to register all day long. We've got a law conference. We've got a Capitol Hill 101, teaching people how to basically talk with their legislators to become more pro-life. We've got a Culture of Life seminar all about our theme, a youth rally, very, very exciting. So that's tomorrow. On the day of the March for Life, for the strong of heart, at 8 a.m., there's a 5K run along the Potomac. And then we start with a little bit of music, warming the crowds up for the rally at 11:45, and then right at noon we begin the rally. The rally's on 12th Street on the mall, which is a different location than last year. And then at 1 o'clock, we begin the actual march. And that is right at 14th and Constitution, so 14th in the mall. And for folks in D.C., that means that the city will be shut down because 14th Street and Constitution Avenue is shut down there for a few hours. And it's a pretty big deal in Washington, D.C. So 14th and Constitution, march all the way up past the Supreme Court, and that will last a few hours. And then on Thursday night, we have our annual Rose Dinner. We've got Carl Anderson, the Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, who's going to be speaking. We're excited to hear him speak.
Well, that's fantastic. Look, as far as I'm concerned, Jeanne, you can just stay in Mordor as long as you keep the kids there. No tax money gets in. No hellish
recommendation, Mike.
no hellish legislation gets in. None gets out. The world will be spared for as long as we can spare it. I would love to have you back to come back and talk to me about marriage, contraception, and brain dead, because I see that you worked for the Catholic Church at one point in time. I'd like to extend the same invitation. As a matter of fact, we're going to try to find Rita Marker, because Rita has worked on some of these issues, or Ms. Marker has worked on some of these issues.
Yes, she's fantastic. She's the one to talk to. But, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about some of those other things as well.
Well, I think that these are we're not doing Right to Life March because, I think they're related. I think that it's our responsibility. We have failed the millennial generation in not catechizing and in not providing them with catechism that's our responsibility. And it's not just about the issue of life. Of course, that is the most important one. But, you still have to live your life. And there are rules. And there are a lot of rules. You need to know the rules. If someone doesn't explain them to you, then you really can't hold this generation at fault for not knowing because they haven't been told.
That's true. That's right. I hear you.
So we need to do all these things. Well, look, Godspeed, God bless. Domino's will be school to you.
Thank you.
And I hope you have a wonderful day, and it's not too cold, too cold. And we will reach out to you after all this is done, and we'll talk about those other issues. But thanks for what you do for the March for Life, because I know it has to be a labor of enormous love and sacrifice and time. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's a cause, just like you. And thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for what you're doing, and Godspeed to you, too.
All right, appreciate it. That's Jeanne Monahan, the president of the March for Life.